Welcome back to Rarest Photos. Thanks for joining me again. It is Thursday, and like the rest of those folks in the South and maybe some other parts of the country, fighting allergies. Always seems to be something going on with me. That being said, we are reading some Elvis in the Twilight of Memory and discussing it. I have seen your comments, and of course, hopefully I'll get around to doing another comment video this evening as well and answering some more of your comments and questions. Let me go ahead and see if I can fix this light a little bit. We'll be right back in about 5 seconds. Let's see here. All right. Let's get to reading. And once again, appreciate your members. I'm going to probably say the same message in all of my videos because I never know who's going to be a brand new subscriber that tunes in for the first time, or the first time somebody gives me a super thanks. So appreciate those that have given me super thanks lately. Old members, new members, greatly appreciate it. If you want to find all the videos on my channel, click on Rare Elvis Photos. It's going to bring you to the homepage for my YouTube. And click on playlist and podcast, and click on one of the books that you want to read along with me, and then sort oldest to newest. The oldest one, which is the very first one, is going to be at the top, and just watch them all the way down. All right, so we're at chapter 11 right now. Where we just finished up, Elvis went to a radio station with June to try to clear up this idea that he had a fiance, and then he went and spent some time with a socialite that was 17 that had her own convertible that invited Elvis and June back to her house for drinks because her parents weren't home. It's rock and roll right there, baby. Chapter 11, Summer Fun. Elvis had a message waiting for him at the front desk of the hotel. Mr. Bellman had called to say he had arranged a deep-sea fishing trip for the whole gang. We were to be at the dock at 7 o'clock in the morning, so my hair was still damp and in pin curls. I went with Pat to meet everyone at the Coco restaurant to have breakfast. Before we went to the boat, June says. I walked in the restaurant sleepy-eyed with a red bandana wrapped around my head. Elvis pretended not to know me. Aunt Jemima, you can sit next to me here if you like, Elvis said, pulling out a chair. Puts me in the mood for a pancake or two, Jean mumbled dryly. The waitress came to the table with her pad and pencil. Elvis was always the last one to order. He had trouble making up his mind, but always ended up ordering the same thing. That is hilarious. That is me. I'm the last one to order every single time. No doubt. No joke. You could quiz all my family. If they come to me, I'm like, nope, you can start over there. And when they get to me, skip me, you can go to her. My wife knows what she wants. How funny. You know, it doesn't mean I'm anything like Elvis, but it's interesting to see things like that. You know, I got saved from getting my behind kicked by high schoolers, football team, by a redheaded guy as well in high school. And I was a guitar player in high school. You can't make that up. His name was Chris Broussard. 29 Palms High School, and he stepped in and kept me from getting I was 120 pounds soaking wet, maybe 130, from getting beat up. Anyways, let's get back to the book. That's very interesting. So Elvis says, I tell the chef I'll have my bacon and eggs the same exact way I had them yesterday. And he smiled at the waitress. And how was that, sir? I wasn't here yesterday. And I don't think the chef was either, the waitress answered sarcastically, her tone of voice betraying a distinct attitude problem. I'll have two eggs fried hard, and I like my bacon burned, ma'am. Please. She stood there with her pad and pencil, giving Elvis a disbelieving look. I'm serious, ma'am. Please don't bring me no runny eggs. When she returned with the food, everyone got exactly what they ordered. Everyone apart from Elvis, that is. His eggs were sunny side up with the yolks jiggling, and his bacon was limp. The smart-ass waitress had a smirk on her face when she put his plate in front of him. She was trying to show Elvis she wasn't impressed with him or his fame. I don't know what it is, but something tells me this waitress doesn't like me. Oh, sorry. I thought Arthur was talking. Arthur, is it Arthur Hooten? I forgot his last name. So Elvis says, I don't know what it is, but something tells me this waitress, she just don't like me. Arthur, are you sure you've been leaving a tip when you pay the check? Arthur had a mouthful, so he just nodded. Please, ma'am, would you please ask him to cook these eggs hard and burn the bacon? Elvis said, still smiling. She snatched his plate and went back to the kitchen. Everyone else was busy eating. I was feeding Elvis some of my hash browns when the waitress returned with his plate. Oh my goodness, this waitress. It looked almost like it had before. He picked up a piece of toast and stuck it in the runny egg yolk. I'm sorry, ma'am. I just can't eat this, he said politely. Do you think you're supposed to get special treatment just because you're Elvis Presley, she asked, glaring at him. No, ma'am. I'd just like to be treated like a regular customer. This time there was no politeness in his voice. He stood up, picked up his plate, and tilted it, letting the eggs drop and splatter yolk at her feet. I felt like cheering, June said, but I didn't. Elvis was very cool when he told Arthur to pay the check and not forget the tip. Well, that's nice. He still gave her a good tip. He said, maybe she'll use it to buy a book on good manners, he said, putting his plate back on the table. It was evident we weren't staying, so Pat started putting all the toast in a napkin. I'll leave it. We'll eat somewhere else, Elvis said. But we don't have time. We have to be in the boat in 20 minutes. Arthur walked over to the cashier and read, following Pat's lead, put all the ham, steaks, and bacon in a napkin too. We divided the ham, bacon, and toast, and everyone had a sandwich on the way to the boat. Now here's some language I can't repeat that Elvis's cousin said. That's stupid, Gene mumbled between bites. A small group had gathered at Borisev's pier to see us off. Now, Eddie Bellman handed Elvis a bag of warm, glazed donuts. The incident at the restaurant was quickly forgotten with those donuts, and we were stuffing our faces with them before the boat left the dock. Captain Thornton, owner of the boat, the Aunt Jenny, shook hands with Elvis. Watching us devour the donuts, Captain Thornton commented about how the water sure stimulates a person's appetite. Sometimes I'm trying to figure out whether it's Elvis saying this or somebody else before I read it. I hope we got plenty of food. You know we got Arthur with us, Gene said, putting in his 2 cents worth. Someone was always teasing Arthur, the only one in the group who was a little bit overweight. Arthur just smiled, taking it all in stride. Mr. Bellman told us not to worry about food, opening the ice chest and showing us that we had enough food there for at least 50 people. The best way to prevent seasickness is to keep your stomach full at all times, and I wanted to make sure that we had enough, Eddie said, smiling. About 10 miles out into the Gulf, we dropped the lines over the troll. The heavy rods and reels used artificial bait called spoons or spinners. When a fish hit your line, you yelled strike, so the captain would slow the boat. All the other lines should be reeled in at the same time to avoid tangles. We had as many as 3 people fighting the fish at the same time. It was very fast-paced and very exciting. Now, we caught our share of king mackerel, bonitos, and jack crevalles, also called amberjacks, all weighing between 12 and 60 pounds. Elvis expressed an interest in sharks, so Captain Thornton pulled up to the shrimp boat to pick up a bucket of chum. Now, chum is trash fish shrimpers clean from their nets. And so chum is trash. Oh yeah, chum is trash that fish shrimpers clean from their nets and usually throw back in the water. You can tell when a shrimper is cleaning his nets by the flock of seagulls following behind the boat, plucking the small dead fish from the water. See, nothing is wasted. What the seagulls don't eat, the larger fish do. Now, it's traditional for a fisherman to trade a 6-pack of beer for a bucket of chum. But we didn't have any beer on board. When Eddie asked Elvis what kind of beer he liked, Elvis replied, Mark's root beer. That's awesome. Barks Root Beer. My wife loves Barks Root Beer. Do y'all have Barks Root Beer where you're at? It's Barqs. Of course, I grew up drinking A&W Root Beer, which is great as well. But Barks must be a southern thing, since I'm here in Tennessee, and that's what I've drank here. Elvis bought it by the case to take back to Memphis. Barks, now nationally known, was only then available on the Mississippi coast. Eddie mistakenly thought Elvis was against having alcoholic beverages, so he didn't buy beer for anyone. He ended up paying cash for the bucket of chum. Now, the captain dropped the anchor and hung a sack of chum from the back of the boat. It wasn't long before the chum was attracting ravenous sharks of all sizes. Elvis and Red did most of the fishing, landing some impressively sized sharks. I watched from a safe distance, June said, not wanting anything to do with all those rows and rows of razor-sharp teeth. Me neither. That's pretty brave. My daddy loves fish. I can't wait for him to get a load of this, Elvis said, beaming. Sure I can. Elvis, my boy, just let me know when you're ready to go again, Eddie said, happy to oblige. Now, when we returned to the dock that evening, we found the white convertible top of Elvis's Cadillac completely covered with girls' names and love notes. Well, it didn't seem to bother Elvis, but, June said, it really bothered me. I was embarrassed that this had happened in my hometown, but I was soon to learn that it happened everywhere he went. When he had arrived at Sun and Sand, the parking lot was filled with people waiting to see Elvis. Exhausted from the long day on the water, he made his way to the room and collapsed on the sofa. He was so annoyed, he felt like going somewhere else where no one could find him. And this is what Elvis said. I'd leave tonight if I knew where I could get some privacy. Shaking his head in belief, he said. When I got home that night, I told my mother and Mr. Bellman about the crowds and how aggravating it was for Elvis. Eddie called Elvis the next morning at the motel and offered him his house on Porter Avenue. Now, it was a furnished rental house that happened to be vacant at the time. So Elvis and the boys loaded up the car and moved in. Unfortunately, some of the same crowd arrived at the same time as Elvis. We knew that he wouldn't have any privacy here either. We stayed at the house long enough for Eddie to call Gulf Hills Dude Ranch and Country Club to see if they had a vacant villa. Elvis quickly handed Eddie a note that read, Arthur Hoot and Party of 5. With high hopes for privacy, we left Biloxi, I think that's how you say it, Biloxi. I lost my place trying to pronounce that. We left Biloxi and headed east, making the crowds think that he was going to Florida. Well, Gulf Hills catered mainly to golf enthusiasts, and their early morning tea schedule fit in perfectly with ours. The majority of hotel guests were already in the middle of their golf game by the time that we were up and around. We usually had the hotel dining room, the hotel lounge, which was called the Pink Pony, as well as the hotel swimming pool, all to ourselves. Also, the miles and miles of winding roads around the hotel usually had newcomers going around in circles, which proved to be a great deterrent for over-anxious autograph hounds. Gulf Hills became Elvis's home away from home for the rest of that summer. Also, the miles and miles, whoops, here I'm reading the same thing, for that summer, okay? Now that he had some privacy, he was a totally different person. He was free to come and go as he pleased. His only concern was finding some fun activities for the whole gang to enjoy. The hotel social director came up to the villa with a list of possible activities. Now, golf was at the top of the list, but Elvis didn't play golf. And square dancing, well, that was out of the question. Horseback riding and water skiing, however, got everyone's attention. Elvis got directions to the stable. Here's going to be something that we're going to learn. If Elvis truly didn't know how to ride a horse, like everybody claims, because it's in the Lucy the Barb and Are You Lonesome Tonight book, if he didn't know how to ride a horse until he learned how to ride a horse on Love Me Tender, which is after this, why in the world would he want to go horseback riding? And is she going to say that he couldn't ride a horse or that he was great at it? We're about to find out. All right. Horseback riding and square dancing was out of the question. Sorry. Golf and square dancing were out of the question. Horseback riding and water skiing, however, got everyone's attention. Elvis got directions to the stable, and we made arrangements to go horseback riding the following day. Our villa, which was walking distance from the hotel, was located on Fort Bayou, a few feet from the water's edge. I am struggling, folks. I apologize. A few feet. I feel like I'm 5 years old trying to read something. A few feet from the water edge. That evening, Elvis and I went for a walk along the bayou and watched the beautiful sunset from the end of the hotel pier. The sky dock, also located at the end of the pier, had posted a schedule for water skiing for beginners and advanced skiers. Now, Elvis couldn't have been more pleased with his newfound paradise. Do you like to ski, baby? He said. His voice was filled with excitement. I don't know. I've never tried. You've been raised on water, and you've never been on water skis? You gotta be kidding. No, I'm not kidding. I don't know anyone with a boat, much less water skis. You'd be good at it, baby. I can tell. We'll get you some ski lessons while I'm here, and you're gonna love it, June. The thought of water skiing for the first time had me a little nervous, until he told me himself had only been skiing for a few months. So I figured, if he could do it, then I could do it. With my head resting on his shoulder, we sat quietly, watching the red sky slowly fade into darkness. Suddenly it was so dark, we had to inch our way back to the villa, stumbling and laughing each step of the way. We had so many different activities to look forward to. Now he was worried about how to fit everything in. The boys were all laying around the big living room, smoking long, skinny wood-tip cigars and drinking root beer. The place smelled awful. Elvis told them to open the windows and the doors and get some fresh air in there. Coughing and fanning his face, he snatched up the car keys, grabbed me by the hand, and we ran outside. Now, riding down to the beach, several cars started tooting their horns. Elvis pulled the convertible over and put the top up, thinking he would have some more privacy. Well, he had forgotten all about the names and numbers that most of them had written in lipstick on the convertible top, and that only made matters worse. We managed to get out of the traffic without anyone following and parked in an alley behind my house. Elvis had no idea where we were until I pointed to the garage. Until I pointed to the garage apartment in my backyard. This is great, June. Even your mother wouldn't think to look for us back here. My mother had been standing by the stove and noticed the headlights coming down the alley. When the headlights stopped and then went out, she decided to see who was parked behind her garage, where the street light on the corner had lit the area up enough for her to see the white convertible with its newly decorated top. Well, we both laughed when we saw her coming around the corner. Just checking to see who's out here, she said, smiling. Hi, Miss Juanico. I was just talking about you, Elvis said, laughing. Mama had just finished icing a banana cake and still had that knife in her hand. It took Elvis 2 seconds to get out of the car when she invited us in to have a piece of warm cake and glass of cold milk. Mama, anxious to find out all that she could about the young singing idol her daughter was involved with, had been buying any and all magazines featuring articles on Elvis. Now that he was sitting in her kitchen table, she had a chance to find out firsthand what his life was all about. Without meaning to pry, she was asking question after question after question about his singing career mostly. She seemed to know more about his public life than I did. Well, I knew he had to feel a little like I had the first time I met his mother. Well, when Mama looked at her watch and excused herself, saying she was going to go have a bath, Elvis announced he was leaving too. Thanks for the cake, Miss Juanico. It was delicious. My mother makes the same cakes for me all the time. He ran his finger along the edge of the cake plate for one last taste of chocolate icing. Well, I walked him to his car, gave him a sweet chocolate-tasting goodnight kiss, and watched him back slowly down the narrow alley. He blinked his headlights 3 times before driving away, and I smiled. I knew he was using the lights to say, I love you. I love you. Well, that is chapter 11. We made it through it. Next chapter is going to be chapter 12. We'll get to reading that. Oh, excuse me. I apologize. Get to reading that. Probably another reading on that Saturday. I think tomorrow's Friday. We'll do a Child Bride. And then, I don't know. We'll see if this works out. I mean, if I can get a second reading in, you know, I will. But talking straight for 20 minutes or 25 minutes, it's not the greatest thing for a singer. Very old friend came by today. I love that song. And he was telling everyone in town all the love that he has found. What's her name? Marie. Marie's the name of his latest flame. Anyhow, TCB TLC, thank you. Until next time, this is Rare Elvis Photos. Find me over on Facebook, Joe Sins Rare Elvis Photos. Yeah, we're getting into a routine, and I got to find that routine, something consistent for y'all, so you know, hey, there's going to be a video today at around 12, 1 o'clock or 2. There's going to be one this evening, and then I don't have to disappear because I worn myself out. And I don't want to do that to y'all. I want y'all to be able to rely on me. Okay, TCB TLC Rare Elvis Photos.